Well, always look forward to Monday mornings and getting back with the guys and looking forward to another week with them. And, there's areas, certainly we've done some good things, but we've got to continue to get better and individually and collectively and focus on that and get ourselves ready to play this Saturday against Illinois. And I know you guys get the injury report. We're excited that Chikwe is going to practice, so I don't know how the practices will go for him. The more you do, you just want to see how things respond. But I know not just myself, but I know the players are excited. And then also just kind of working through some things with Jazz. And he's going to take he's working through his ankle injury and also is going to take some time away to work through some personal things.
You mentioned Chikwe, and you always talk about the fact that it's tough for these guys to miss some games. How has he handled it? And if he does come back, is it a situation where you've got to work him in gradually, do you anticipate?
The first part of that is, in fact, I was just after practice talking with Dakota on the way down, and I thought he's handled it really well. And certainly I think there's that first couple weeks where, he's not isolated, but he kind of he came, geez, I don't know how long this is going to take. But then, it's been a couple weeks now where he starts rehabbing it and going, and it's happening faster, and guys are getting excited, and I think it's because of how he's handled it and how he's stayed engaged. Physically, I don't think you put a limit because you're coming back, this is the amount that you'll do or won't do, although that's part of it, and just kind of see, tomorrow and Wednesday will be more physical practices, so really I think you try to follow the lead of how he's feeling with it, but it's pretty neat to have him back because you do know that he's missed a lot, a chunk of his season, but it's good energy just because guys care about him. He's one of those guys that guys like, and so we'll see how it goes.
Jason? Paul, what are the things that you notice that Troy does on the field so well that opens things up in the passing game? Is it more than just his ability to catch the ball?
Yeah, I think certainly, he's got a knack for being able to position his body. A lot of times, especially at the tight end spot, there's kind of contested plays, and I think he's continues to gain an understanding of not only what we're trying to do with the play, but how that then pertains to the different ways that you're being defended. So he's continuing to learn and grow, and I think confidence has something to do with it too. That you've done it and you trust yourself, and I think that allows the guy to play faster. And each week's a different challenge, new challenge, and I thought the best thing he did last week was for the first time he practiced fast, and I think that you felt like he was back to his body was back to where he could play fast.
Jason. Well, I know one of the things you like to say is that you need everybody. And I was wondering how impressed you've been with the depth you've had that's had to step up at a number of positions this year.
Well, certainly it's been big, and we were going into last game. We knew that there was going to be a heck of a challenge on our kickoff coverage unit, and it was good. Noah Burke's first time being on that unit, and he stepped up, and I think had the first one that we covered. He tackled it, and it doesn't matter what we were talking about urge. We're talking about backs. You're talking about defensively guys stepping in. As the season progresses, you need everyone, and some guys are going to be asked to make a lot of plays, but everyone is capable of making one play, two plays to contribute, and that's where we just got to continue to keep growing and developing, and the guys, when they get their moments, they've got to produce for us.
Tom. Well, what's the secret to being a good road team?
I think I don't know if there's a secret. I think it still comes down in the end to playing good football, and certainly in some games or moments in games on the road, you've got to handle whether it's noise or something. But I think it's just focusing on the opportunity at hand, and just you got to try to each weekend be the best team in the stadium and all those cliches. But I think it's true. I don't think there's any magic to it. It's another opportunity, and be as prepared as you can, and then you still got to go out and play a game, and I think it comes down to executing and all the things that good football is.
Is that pretty similar to like playing a team like Illinois that's clearly down, not having a letdown or overlooking a team, a lesser team, so to speak?
Yeah, I think all that, the approach that we've had is that you always have to know your opponent, and you always respect your opponent, and that's what's nice about when you put on the tape and you see good players and a ton of respect for Coach Smith, and they're well coached, and so then once you know your opponent, then I think it all goes back to yourself, and in this instance our team, and what can we do to be as prepared as possible, and the challenge is the opponent that week. But I think the biggest focus and the whole key is, can you improve as a player? And we know there's never been a part of a football game where you weren't challenged, and where there wasn't adversity, and where the momentum didn't leave you, and it's how you play that. And so I think all of that ties back in to, you got to put the energy and focus on the things you can control, and you've got to be the best player you can be, and collectively then we become the best team.
Dennis.
Jonathan, I guess, is the freshman of the week for the 5th time. How are teams starting to adjust to him, and how's that impact what maybe Hornibrook's able to do for you?
I think certainly that it all goes in. I don't know. It's hard to say how our team's adjusting to him when they've got to defend our offense. And certainly he's been a big part of it. But each team has a different scheme, has different players. And so you would really only know that if you played the same team week after week after week, and then you'd say, okay, this is how they're starting to adjust to whatever we're doing. So, I know people know about him, but I think I say this because I know how we got to approach it. You got to defend the scheme, and a big part of the scheme is the individual players. And so then, you adjust accordingly. But I think your scheme is your scheme, and so I don't know how to answer that other than people have to do it within what their defense is, and we've got to attack what they do, and certainly JT's been a big part of it, and for us to be good, he needs to continue to be that.
Paul, Garrett Dooley has developed into a pretty consistent pass rusher this season. Beyond just the opportunity to play, where do you think he's made the biggest gains since even last season?
Well, I think that Dools has done a lot of the things that you ask, that he's worked, and he's put himself in position to get better. And then I think when you play and when you make plays, I think that gives you confidence. And then he's playing with confidence, and I think he's also playing, with an appreciation and gratefulness that, it is fun playing. And yet I also think that he's risen up to the challenge that is, I can be a guy that can impact this, and so therefore I got to do it every time. But I think it goes back to being consistent and finding ways to get better. And I think, certainly he's got a great coach in Tim Tibesar, and Tibbs helps him along the way, but he's taking ownership of the responsibility of being a good player.
Jason.
Obviously, Illinois is struggling this year, but when you look at them on tape, do you see any improvements they've made since you played them last year, and do you see anything they might be trying to do different schematically at all than last year?
Well, I don't think you ever get into where you're trying to compare them to last year. Last year doesn't matter. There's different players. There's, certainly I think, you see it offensively. I think in a nutshell of what you're talking about, you look at it and they've got some really talented, skilled players, and certainly, played the young quarterback, and I think with that there's some, it presents some different challenges, or there may be a little bit different, but we've got to prepare for, all right, everything that they do, offensively, defensively, and special teams, but don't try to get into comparing to what was last year. And we're a different team than we were last year, and never go back to, none of that matters.
Jeff.
Paul, obviously, people talk about Taylor's speed, his quickness, and that, but is he as physical a runner as maybe you anticipated, the ability to break tackles and things like that when you saw him early in camp? I'm just curious what you thought of that trait.
Well, I think you were there. I mean, you saw both in camp, and what's with every one of these players, what's kind of fun is that that once they show the ability to do it, then it's doing it over and over and being consistent with it. And I think that JT has done that. I don't think he's doing anything now that he didn't do or you didn't see glimpses of, in all of camp. And yet you appreciate the fact that he's continuing to do that. And I think he's continuing to work at all the different areas that he can get better. And so it's hard to say, are you surprised? And you're always appreciative of it. But, I don't think he all of a sudden became someone different.
Jason.
Paul, Taiwan was questionable for a few weeks there, and now he's listed as out for the season. What kind of happened to change his timetable so dramatically?
Well, as he was off and then kind of rehabbing back, was starting to feel better and better. And then once he pushed himself, and he had about 2 days where he was going hard, and that's when he had a bit of a setback, or big setback. And so then you go see the specialists and the doctors, and then this is the way that we got to handle it. And so he had surgery. So so I think it's, they don't know, and they're going to try. You don't want to just all of a sudden have surgery. And so can we rest it? Can we come back? And he's coming back, and then it was fine when you're going 70%, when you're going 75%, but something still wasn't right for him, and he pushed it to a point where, all right, we got to take a look at it again.
I got just one more. What do you feel like Jason Erdman's biggest strengths are, and how well do you think he's played for you guys the last few weeks?
I think he's certainly given us some really good play and in significant moments, and obviously, his strengths are, I think physically he's got good strength. I think he's got an understanding, and we've had him in, like I said, in big moments. You appreciate that, but he can still get a lot better.
Jeff.
Kind of follow up on Taylor. Are you comfortable with the way he protects the football? I know he's had the 2 fumbles in the last 2 games. He had a stretch where he didn't fumble.
Right.
I mean, is he doing a good enough job, or were just some things on those plays where he needs to improve on?
Yeah, I mean, you can't sit here today and say that, no, we're good. You know what I mean? And he wouldn't say that. And yet I think that he has done a lot. I mean, I thought, in looking at the one that happened, I mean, he got it out, and it wasn't careless. I didn't feel like it was careless. I didn't feel like he was swinging the ball. I didn't feel like he was trying to change it in the middle of it. And so do we have to do better? Does he have to do better? Yeah. But I think that it was certainly not anything malicious